With the Citi Double Cash Card, you get 1% cash back when you buy and 1% as you pay. That's like the joy of getting 2 W's on the road or catching the home run ball without spilling your drink. Double boom. Double the love with the Citi Double Cash Card. Apply now at Citi.com/doublecash.
You know the resume for Damien. 17th overall selection in the 99 draft. 2-time Super Bowl champ. 11-year career. And I got to say, you played it right. You know, everybody gets one deal. You got 3 good ones. You played it right, man. Maybe we weren't quite Darrelle Revis level, because nobody is, but you played it well.
Timing is everything, my friend.
Yes, it is.
Timing is everything.
You timed it well.
I timed it well.
I covered Damien when I was doing college games when I first got here. If I remember correctly, you never wore anything on your hands in college. Had some of the best hands I've ever seen out of an O-lineman coming out of college.
I couldn't shotgun snap worth the squat.
Oh, no, you could not. No. And I remember going over all that when I was covering
games. And that's
games.
a prerequisite for being a center.
It does. Yeah. But your hand placement and how you played with your hands was fantastic coming out of college, and obviously it worked out pretty well for you in the pros. Yeah, I'd say.
It worked out.
Yeah, I'd say.
Quite you know what? He's been great. By the way, if you're not following Damien on Twitter, especially during a Jets game, highly recommend. Highly recommend. It's
entertaining. It's usually more than the game.
Damien will give it to you straight, and he joins us in studio, giving the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. In fact, we did a segment last year on NFL Live Jets Therapy.
People still talk about that.
I got to put on the lab coat and the glasses, and Damien was like on the couch, like, I can't handle it. By the way, you were on the Pro Football Focus's All-Decade team from 2006 to 2015. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
There you go.
How about that?
Okay,
not bad.
So
where are the donuts? Where are the donuts in here?
You got to look in a contract to see if there was any money involved, right?
I'm always looking for the extra change.
And you got it most of the time. You're too late for the donuts, so they're gone by 6:10 with this.
Without a doubt, yeah.
Okay, so after all this, you're great. We love you and all this kind of stuff. Mike seems to have a little umbrage with your take on the Eli Manning situation. So, Michael, the floor is yours.
Well, I mean, first go over your take. We just had Stu Gatz on and seemed to go down the road you were going, but when everybody was kind of talking about Eli and why you doing this to Eli and you don't do it to a quarterback like this, you had somewhat of a different take.
Yeah, I just the gist of what I was saying is no one in the National Football League is immune to these type of things happening. We've seen it throughout the history of the game. Even within the Giants organization. I mean, Phil Simms was cut, doing an autograph signing, I believe. He's a legend within the Giants organization. My whole point is, people were crying the blues about Eli Manning, but I said, listen, we can talk about the offensive line, which is totally get it.
Right.
That's the issue. Mm-hmm. Running back, I get it. But at the end of the day, you still, as a player, you still have to be responsible for your own play. Mm-hmm. And since 2014, his play has just been on a downward trend through that. So all I'm saying is you can't say there's no justification for a move like this when his play has been slowly declining throughout the years.
All right. Let's take a look at that, though. Let's look at the numbers. Let's specifically deal with this year.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, look, let me go, because he said from 2014, so I'll say the same thing from Stu Gatz. I wonder, and I know you can't just look at numbers, but if you told me for a 3-year span, I could have a quarterback that averaged 4,300 yards, 63% completion, and over those 3 years he threw 91 touchdowns and 44 interceptions, would you take it? I think most people would take it in a heartbeat. That's Eli. That's what he did. In 2014, 30 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. 2015, 35 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Then 26 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. All those years, 4,400 yards in the area of 63% completion. Now, again, I know you can't put it all on that, but those aren't bad. I mean, those are numbers where I don't look at that and I'd say, wow, that's somebody really declining. We need to take a look. Now, if you want to get into he's 37, we're not sure about the future, we may need to take a look. As I said, from the business side of this, there's part of me that understands it because you're right. Nobody's immune. But I did take a little bit of, wait a minute, is his play really been going that bad when you look at some of those numbers?
Well, I think here's the way I feel about it. And, I look at last year when the Giants went 11-5.
Right.
Had a number one defense. But Eli Manning had one of the worst QBRs, only better than Blake Bortles, Ryan Fitzpatrick,
his QBR
and
was
Case
bad last
Keenum.
year. You're right.
So, I think for Eli, for him to be successful, there's a lot of things around him that has to be right. And I think when you look at the Giants this year being sitting at 2-9 and the age that Eli, his age currently right now, I think the Giants, I don't fault the Giants for saying, you know what, this season is washed. We're probably not going to move forward with Eli because of the cap situation next year. We want
$22 million, I think it is next year.
Yeah. We want to take a look at the other guys. Now, what the uproar is, because the other guy came from what some people call the little brother team in New York and Geno Smith.
And you have a resume on him.
Right. You have a resume, and then obviously the whole, sucker punch and getting his jaw broken. So all those things follow him. But I'm just looking at it from the pure standpoint of no one is immune from these type of decisions. You just hear all the people, oh, how could you do this? I'm like, well, wait a minute. We've seen this type of stuff happen all the time throughout the National Football League. But now all of a sudden we're going to have to take this one guy and prop him up and say that this isn't fair. That's not football. The game of football is a cold business.
Yeah, it is.
We've all met our end at some point. It doesn't matter what your resume looks like. We've all met our end unceremoniously, throughout our, at the end of our careers. So I'm like, why is Eli immune to that?
Well, I don't think he's immune, but I think he's actually being treated the same way other, legendary with their team, the best way to put it, quarterbacks have been treated. Brett Favre, when he had the retirement conference and he was bawling his eyes out, said I could still play, and then he wanted to come back, and the team said, no, we've moved on, and we're moving on to Aaron Rodgers, which, by the way, turned out to be a really good idea.
Yeah,
but there, Ed Werder used to work for us, was on Brett Favre's lawn every day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like what we're doing with Eli is different from any of these other legendary quarterbacks with their teams. It's just it's his time to go through the wash is what I would say.
Right.
And you guys, I know you hate it because you're both offensive and defensive linemen. People look at quarterbacks differently. They just do. Whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do.
Because a lot of times the quarterbacks tend to play the longest with the franchise, and people identify with the quarterback position the longest, so they have that attachment.
Is it out of the realm to you? I brought this up earlier. First, do you think Reese, McAdoo, Eli, any of them will be back next year?
My gut tells me no.
So let me then that's what I thought. So let me throw this at you. If Reese and McAdoo are gone, so new GM, new coach, what's the thought process of saying, you know what? We saw what Minnesota and the Rams did in turning their O-lines around in a year. Draft Saquon Barkley. We got ourselves a bit of a running game. The defense, almost the same defense 2 years ago was really good. Last year they certainly, and this year they haven't been up to par there. And you keep going with Eli and build around it a little more for a couple of years and see what happens. Would you have any thought of doing that, or are you moving on?
I would say there's some thought, but here's the thing that really not a lot of people are talking about. When you make a move like this, ownership has to sign off on it.
Absolutely right.
And I don't think, again, the Maras and Tisch family, they had to sign off on this. So what is in their mind? What are they thinking?
Right.
The fact that they okayed this move by Ben McAdoo. Do they think Eli's washed up and they're ready to move on? I think that's another fact. That's a big factor that a lot of people really need to consider.
I think that's a great point because, Trey, to that, if you are looking for a new GM and a new coach, well, the owner's going to have some say in what you're telling said GM that you hire, who will then want to hire the coach, some kind of, for lack of a better term, marching orders of, hey, you're the GM of this team and Eli's going to be a part of it, or Eli, hey, we don't want Eli a part of it, or I'm giving you the power to do what you want to do.
Yes, absolutely. Most GMs, in most situations, they want to bring in their guy.
Right.
They want to do that. And you find that GMs that draft a guy are more partial to keep that guy around than they are to someone that they inherit.
Right.
But the other part of this, and we brought it up with Adam, we brought it up with Sugats, Damien, let's not forget who Eli Manning is from the day he came into this league. He basically said, I'm not going to San Diego. Even if you draft me, I'm not going to play there. And we all saw that shot of 2004 where he held up the jersey with a smile on his face that says, get me out of this situation as fast as I possibly can. Right. And he facilitated that. If he's going to stay with the Giants, he's going to have to be okay with everything that went down starting Tuesday to going forward. And there's just a part of me, knowing him and knowing the Mannings like I do, that they are not going to be okay with that, and they would be more than happy to say, hey, that's fine. You wanted to do that. I'm going to go out there and show you shouldn't have done it.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, Eli and the Manning family, they're nothing but class, personified. There's no question about that. But you better believe behind the scenes that there's a plan percolating behind the scenes of how they want to orchestrate this thing. Yes, you see it. You see the class and how how Eli has handled this thing, but this thing is far from over. And at the end of the day, Eli wants to have the last laugh in this whole situation because you would have to think as a player, a guy who's been in the face of the franchise for all this time, this is embarrassing.
Yeah.
This is absolutely embarrassing.
Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio, ESPN2, talking to Damien Woody. Tomorrow at this time, Katie Nolan will be sitting right where you are sitting. One of the other things we've been talking about this morning is the NFL and the players and the protest and the proposed offer on the table of $89 million over 7 years. But the other part of it, of this player coalition run by Malcolm Jenkins and Anquan Boldin, that Eric Reed has separated himself from now, and those two, there seems to be a crack there. And then the supposed deal by the league. When you look at this thing from 30,000 feet on down, what do you see?
Well, initially when I first saw it, I thought it was like a quid pro quo.
Right.
Here's $89 million. We need you guys to stop.
Hush money.
Yeah, hush money. We need you guys to stop all of this.
Right.
But, start digging into it and just talking to some people. One person in particular, Jim Trotter, one of our colleagues here, he was saying, listen, a lot of people don't know, Roger Goodell and Troy Vincent have really been pushing this thing, even when the owners has really been hesitant about this whole situation. They've really been pushing to try to facilitate to really have that working with the players on this issue of how can we give back to the causes that are important to you, and at the same time don't make you feel like we're trying to force your hand here. And if that's the case, you got to give kudos to Roger Goodell. We slam Roger Goodell a lot for a lot of decisions that that come about in the National Football League. But if this is the case where it's a true partnership and they're not trying to force the player's hand, I think that's huge. I think that's huge for this whole deal.
Well, it would also be huge in something we've talked about earlier today. Look, ever since the CBA was signed back in 2011 between the players and the owners to avoid a work stoppage during the regular season, which we had in the offseason when the owners pretended like they were losing money when they were actually banking money because they weren't signing players. They weren't have to fund OTAs and training camps and mini camps. They were actually making money. It seems like ever since that deal was signed, the relationship has just gotten worse between the players and the owners. And the biggest issue I see in this whole story is it goes back to this fundamental lack of trust that the players have, that either the commissioner or the owners, through a variety of things that have gone forward since then, and including the things that have happened in 2017, just don't feel like they really believe that the owners are going to do the things that they say they do or follow things through in the way the players would like. What you just said about what Troy Vincent and Roger Goodell have done, do you think this is the first meaningful step that they have made to try and assuage the players that, yes, we really are wanting to do that?
I think so. I definitely. And another thought that I had about this whole thing is it seems like they're trying to mend the fences. Because if you look down the road, and it's not that far down the road, they're going to be a new collective bargaining agreement is coming down the road at some point.
Everything's a bargaining.
Everything's a bargaining agreement, and is this setting the table for when the CBA comes back up again, and you have to sit down with the players and try to hash this thing out and not go through that battle with the last CBA,
right?
I'm sure some of that plays in it, but I genuinely think that Roger Goodell and Troy Vincent really want to work with the players in a positive manner in this situation.
All right, let's go on to the field. We have a game tonight.
Yes,
the Cowboys and the Redskins. And oh, by the way, it's Color Rush, and Washington is fighting it. They don't want to wear the Color Rush uniforms. I happen to love the Color Rush stuff.
I do.
I think it's really cool. But as my son Mike said, unless it's all white, it's horrible for an offensive lineman. Because
I can speak on that.
Yeah.
It exposes everything.
But I love that stuff. But in this game, it seems like, Woody, while the winner still has a chance, the loser is going to be done as far as playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the loser of this game is done. They might not be mathematically eliminated,
Right.
but for all intents and purposes, they're done. You look at the Cowboys. I mean, they've only scored 22 points in the last 3 games. Yeah.
Under 10 points, 3 straight.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, you think they're missing Zeke a little bit? I mean, and even I spoke on it. I spoke on the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what this is highlighted is how special Zeke is and what he means to that offense. How do they get back on track offensively and be able to score? You got to be able to score points. From Washington's standpoint, they can score points. Trenton Williams, the one of the top left tackles in the National Football League, he's hurting.
Yep.
That could be a big issue in this game when you got DeMarcus Lawrence, who's half a sack away from leading the league in sacks. So you're talking about 2 desperate teams tonight. And again, whoever loses this game, in my mind, is out.
Well, you mentioned one thing, and we talk a lot about, with the Cowboys specifically, about the lack of Zeke being there, and Tyron Smith has been in and out, and Zach Martin was out of that last game.
Yeah, looks like he'll play tonight. He's out of the protocol.
There's one player that they haven't really talked about as being one of the biggest issues for the Dallas Cowboys, and that's linebacker Sean Lee.
Absolutely.
When you look at the numbers, and Brett, see if we can get those splits up, but when Sean Lee plays, I think they give up about 80 yards on the ground rushing. When he doesn't play, they are gashed, 164. So in other words, when Sean Lee's off the field, essentially every opponent does to the Cowboys defense what Zeke Elliott does with the Cowboys offense to opposing defenses. How is it that one guy who's an inside linebacker, by the way, he's not a cover corner, he's not a hybrid rusher off the end, although he can do all of those things. How is it that one guy can make such a difference on a defense?
Well, listen, Mike will be able to tell you. One thing, when you go into any game, the first thing you want to do is you want to make a team one-dimensional. And usually it starts with the running game. And the one thing about Sean Lee, he is so instinctive as a linebacker. I would say, Luke Kuechly is the best all-around linebacker in the National Football League, in my opinion. But Sean Lee, instinctively, his skill set is off the charts. And his ability to, dissect what teams are trying to do in the running game and be able to just get to the ball is just really uncanny. And when you're able to hold teams down running the football, now it allows those guys to be able to rush the passer. And when Sean Lee is out of the game, they're missing that aspect of it in their defense, in my opinion.
And along with what Damien's saying, not only Sean Lee's instinct to get to the ball, or Luke Kuechly's instinct to get to the ball, or a guy like when he was in San Francisco and Navarro Bowman,
absolutely,
when he was a tackling machine, what they do to get others in position, what their study, they're the quarterbacks on defense, what they do to get everybody else to know because this, again, is a game plan. I get a game plan, and I know exactly, on third and whatever situation, they run these things. And then you start to whittle it down by formation to kind of get an idea where they're going to go. You look for tips. That's what these linebackers find out, and they relay it to everybody else, so it gives everybody else a jump on it as well and to put them in the right position. So they're invaluable, not just by their physical play, but by the intangibles as well and what they're able to do. So we'll see tonight what's going to go on with this one. But as we know, a loser is out, and I look forward to the color rush.
Yeah, I like the color rush.
I do. I love it.
Although there was that one game, I think it was the Jets and Bills, not this year, but they were blue. They were green and red.
Yeah.
And if you're colorblind, they all look the same.
They all look the same.
That's true. I like Seattle. They look like highlighters. I thought it was fantastic.
I always think of them as antifreeze.
Yeah.
It looks like antifreeze, what you're pouring in there. It's so bright. It stings the eyes, But we'll see what happens. It is interesting with all the things that we've gotten on the Dallas Cowboys, who, by the way, in this era of declining ratings in the NFL, every time they're on, even when they were blown out by the Eagles on a Sunday night a few weeks ago, was one of the highest rated games out there. So either you love watching them win or you love watching them get beat. I mean, that's the bottom line with the Cowboys. You on NFL Live today?
I'm not.
Well, now I'm sad.
I know, man.
Now I'm sad. Okay. So we have you got that Lee number there, Brett? What is it?
Cowboys have allowed 135 points in 4 games without him.
Okay.
So that's over 33 a game.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing, right? I mean, that's the difference one guy can make on that defense.
It is incredible.
It's not just about him, and that was a brilliant point, and I was listening. It's about
no. I didn't know if what he was saying was on air so everybody could heir it. That's what I wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
of.
that was on there.
Okay,
yeah,
because it would be a lot of people just going, "What's going on right now?"
Well, we're asking that on a daily basis.
That's true. Just say that's true.
All right, so I won't see you later on NFL Live, but always good to see you, Dan.
Absolutely, same here, fellas.
Thanks, man.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
We roll on into the final 30 minutes of Golic and Wingo today, presented on ESPN Radio and ESPN2 by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line, and then they're the guests in studio that we've had, like Adam Schefter and Damien Woody and Jemele Hill joins us in studio now.
You saved me best for last.
There you go. Exactly.
Wait, is somebody after me?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Nobody's
that's on another show. I wouldn't worry about it.
First and foremost, I hope my son and Jason Fitz sent you and L. Duncan some gifts of some kind, because you went on their radio show Tuesday after the college football ranking show, and they also on the Twitter Live, like Periscope Live, and you guys had just about 900,000 views.
Don't short us. I heard it was 1 million.
I think, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. They blew me away. Well, I was on it the week before for Thanksgiving eating pumpkin pie on Mike's couch where he was sitting. We only had 500,000. You guys doubled us. So they owe you a big debt of gratitude.
Well, they tried to pay it off. We did get free Chipotle out of it.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wash?
That's a win in the Golic
That's
house.
a huge win. I even brought beer because I didn't know how this thing went, but it was a lot of fun talking college football. The setup is really unique to do. Twitter or Periscope in between the commercials. It was just like social media and radio coming.
Yeah, you do radio, but you're still on Twitter, and then you go to break, and then you're only on Twitter, and you're doing it on a couch.
I had to be careful not to pick my nose.
Yeah.
Well, rule number one, hold on, just don't.
Yeah.
You use the knuckle.
There you go. That way it's passable.
There you go.
By the way, that's the kind of straight talk you get from Jemele Hill, giving us the straight talk by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. Lots to get into tonight, but let's start here. Number 5, Notre Dame at number 3, Michigan State, 7 o'clock tonight on ESPN. I'm sure you know he is notorious at making lousy bets.
I lost one to her.
Yeah, so are you guys going to have another wager here?
No.
Another wager? Come on.
Look, I would be down with it, but I do understand that at this point, given your track record, he might need to sit the next couple plays out.
Between Jemele and Magic, who pied me in the face 2 years ago after Michigan State beat Notre Dame, to Rebecca Lobo, Notre Dame women play the UConn women tomorrow. She's already jumping on me on Twitter. She has painted my face. I've dressed like the mascot. I mean, it's been ridiculous. I'm tired of losing to her as well. I'm not betting.
No,
I think Notre Dame's going to win. I like what they're playing. They're undefeated. Bonzi Colson is having a monster year right now. I know Michigan State's an excellent team, though. And I love Tom Izzo, is a huge friend of the program, but I'm not betting.
Okay.
I'm not betting.
Well, if you're that confident, if they're saying if you're feeling froggy, jump. If you're feeling froggy, jump.
You know what? I am a frog with some bad hamstrings. Okay? I got some bad hammies on me.
So, in other words, you're a frog that has the will to jump,
there
but not
go.
the physical
That's
capability to
exactly
pull
The
it
mind
off.
is willing, but the flesh is weak.
Physically jumping because my throat and stomach still hurt from the last time I lost a bet to you.
Well, look, I don't know why you think y'all just going to come to Beast Lansing and just, like, that's, really? Are you aware of our record in Beast Lansing under Tom Izzo?
I'm aware of what happened last time these two teams played in 2014.
Why are you bringing up the past?
Because that's all I got.
Okay. No, I mean,
play to your strengths, Mike. Play to your strengths.
Obviously, I think the opposite, but I think it's going to be a great game.
I do too.
Both of these teams coming off of tournament wins, tournament champions.
Right.
With Notre Dame winning
in the Maui
and the PK80, which Michigan State won. They're playing the best stretch of defense. I know it's still early in the season, but best stretch of defense that I've seen them play. In that game against North Carolina, that was by far their best defensive performance of the season.
Boy, and I tell you what, overall though, the ACC is just smoking the Big Ten right now in this Big Ten ACC challenge. Yeah,
great game last night.
The thing that was amazing to me, and maybe it's. maybe it shouldn't be, but that the fact that was the first time North Carolina and Michigan had played since the Chris Webber championship.
I couldn't believe that either.
When I said that, I was like, that can't be right.
Yeah.
That can't be right.
Well, but it makes sense unless it's a non-conference scheduling or something like the Big Ten ACC Challenge. You would have thought they would have put these two teams together because, Michigan basketball has experienced some down years. They went through a dearth for a little while. So I guess I can understand it from that point. But I was just as surprised. I was not surprised by the outcome. North Carolina, of course, they felt bad. They felt after we beat the brakes off of them that they needed to kind of recover and rebound.
And they did.
And they did against the perfect team. My arch rival.
I was about to say, you were okay with this.
Totally.
That worked out perfectly for you.
I did notice on the 6 last night you had Izzo on, but you didn't have Bray on.
Was this equal time?
I'm just saying.
That's not how I roll.
I'm just saying.
Oh, my goodness. As many Notre Dame people you have run through the radio over the years. Right. Look, when you get an opportunity to have your name on the show, it's biased. That's how it works.
Maybe a little.
I've been here a week, and the Notre Dame talk has been ridiculous.
You're already I'm done.
I'm with you.
Can't say
my dome. I'm up to my dome with Golden Domers. Okay? And again, it's the Big Ten ACC Challenge on ESPN tonight, 7:00, right after the 6 with Jemele. Number 5 Notre Dame against number 3 Michigan State. The only loss so far was to Duke in that amazing game out in Chicago. Okay, so we'll move on from college basketball to the NFL, and this has been a sort of a convoluted topic that we're trying to get our hands around here. The $89 million that the NFL has offered to pledge over 7 years, Jemele, to players' choices of their programs, their charities about social issues. Malcolm Jenkins, the Eagles safety, Anquan Bolden, the former receiver, were part of the 40 players that sort of negotiated this deal with the NFL. They felt it was like a good deal. Eric Reed, the safety for the 49ers, has come out against it, and now Russell Okung has come out against it. And this kind of presents the biggest problem, does it not? Because these players were appointed to sort of negotiate a deal on behalf of everybody else, and now it seems like the players are fractured in what they want and what they're expecting.
Yeah, it is unfortunate because I think they've used their platform so wisely, and I thought that they really kind of put the NFL in a interesting position because once they laid out exactly what they wanted, okay, then it's on the NFL. Because a lot of times when there are protests or demonstrations, people say, well, ultimately, what do you want? Well, they laid that out clearly. And that put the onus on the NFL to respond. Well, they have responded. I think for a lot of people, they see the money figure and they want to bring up the term hush money, which has a negative connotation. But if you look at any protest, especially one that was successful, there has to be an end goal. What is the end game? All right. And the reality is that in order for them to do some of the community work that they want to do, to involve themselves passionately in criminal justice reform, that takes money. All right. And so if they took any money from the NFL, as long as it wasn't with the understanding of silence, because here's the thing, just because they take the money and they come to this negotiation, this issue is at such the forefront. It's so out there. It's not going away. So this sort of fear that this issue will certainly be subsided, I don't think that's going to happen at all. I'll say it like this. The moment that we started noticing that Colin Kaepernick was taking a knee, if someone would have said then, a few years from now, this is going to result in the NFL writing, depending on what report you believe, a check between $89 to $100 million, would you have considered that a success?
And your answer would be?
My answer would be yes.
I think people would say
you would have.
It's a good point. It's a really a good point when you look at it from that view. And I guess my side of it on those that were saying, well, the NFL should do more. Michael Wilbon was on PTI yesterday saying shouldn't be about money. They shouldn't be giving money, and he kind of railed on this. And I guess my thought was just what you said. What's the end game here? Then what are we going to? And one thing I also said, Jemele, is while this is an unbelievable cause, unbelievable thing we're talking about here, life and death, there are others. As I give an example, there are other people that have other causes that are life and death causes that look for other people to work with them. You can't expect others to care about your cause as much as you do.
And that seems to be a sticking point for a lot of people and probably some players. See, they want there to be a change of heart. That's not how protests work. Because even if you go back and let's say you look at the Montgomery bus boycott, right, which is probably the most effective protest of modern day, do you think that once that allowed the transportation system in Montgomery to desegregate, do you think that they did that because they suddenly woke up and said, you know what, black people need to have equality? That's not how it works. Usually, if you put the pressure on their wallets, that's how they respond. It doesn't matter if they believe in the cause. The whole point is that you box them in.
It would be nice for them to believe it.
I would love it.
That's the perfect world.
That's the
right?
perfect world, and that's a utopia that frankly doesn't exist. Right. And so if that's what they want, that they want the NFL to suddenly care about injustice and equality and criminal justice reform, I don't know that that's going to happen. And so then you say, okay, well, what can we get out of this that will better improve certain communities, underserved communities that really need help, that really need access and opportunities. If it comes through money, then that's fine. However, I do understand there's a fine line. These players need to be able to voice their opinions. They need to be able to have a platform to do so. That platform exists already. And so as long as they're not telling them, hey, you need to be quiet about these issues in general, then I would say that this was a win on the players for every front. It's just the fracturing. I just would like more detail about why Eric Reid, who I greatly respect, and he's been a powerful voice, why he feels the way he does. Is this about procedure, or is this about actual issues where he feels like that the players are having a blind spot about certain things with the owners?
See, I think it goes back to the lack of trust. Everything that the players feel from the owners has always been, I don't think we believe you.
I don't have to trust you to take your money. Does the check cash?
Yeah.
Right?
Right, but
there's part of me that I'm with you. I brought that up earlier.
And it has to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
The protest has to eventually lead to something going forward, and this could be, we're not saying it's an end line, but we're getting to the starting line. We're getting to the gate. And this is a way to get to the gate. Jemele, thanks for being with us.
Real quick, though, give me 15 seconds on what you expect from Tiger Woods. Do you have expectations?
No, I don't. But I do. I just want him to be healthy. I just want to see him finish tournaments. And that's it. Majors, no. I just want to see him playing competitive golf. That's it.
I have hope, but not expectation.
Yeah, that's hard.
That's a good way to put that.
That's the way I'm looking at this, because you want it to work. You just don't know if it will. Jemele, thanks very much.
Thank you, guys.
See you on the 6th tonight. I'm going to feel really old.
Oh, no.
Thriller came out today, 35 years ago.
35 years ago?
35 years ago.
Wow.
Right?
So,
crazy.
35. That means I was 35, 45, 19 years old. I was 19 years old when this came out.
Yeah.
Holy smokes, I was a teenager.
Yeah. I miss those days.
I love being a teenager.
By the way, 30 years ago today on Monday Night Football?
Yeah.
Bo Jackson destroyed the Boz on Monday Night Football.
Oh, was that the one where
Raiders,
he drilled him in the chest?
The old Kingdom. Yeah.
Ran him over.
Yeah, that was one of the best of all time.
Wow,
that was really good.
Wow.
The Boz, to me.
Another great, that was a 30 for 30, right?
Absolutely.
That was phenomenal.
And people look at the Boz and he was a bust. To me, there's two different things. Busts are guys that don't play well, guys that are injured.
Yeah.
That's not a bust to me.
Yeah, he got big-time injured.
Injuries are it's a 95% certainty in the NFL. Yeah. And if you get the injuries early where you just can't compete, that's not a bust to me.
Yeah.
A bust is a guy that was drafted with the ability that they thought the ability was here, way high, and the ability actually was way low.
Right.
That, to me, is a bust.
Oh, I completely agree.
Yeah.
You can't put injury into it. A lot of people talk about a guy like Greg Oden.
Yeah.
Came in from Ohio State, had a bunch of injuries right off the bat. It's tough. It's a shame because it's kind of out of your control outside of the ability thing. I agree with you.
All right, so we continue here on Golic and Wingo. We've talked a lot about the Tennessee vacancy, obviously, for all the drama that's been around that. With the Volunteers and the head coaching job with the football program. But, Texas A&M fired Kevin Sumlin.
Right.
And it certainly looks like Jimbo Fisher at Florida State is headed that way. And the latest here from ESPN's Mark Schlabach is that Florida State officials are now urging Jimbo to make a decision about whether or not he'll remain the school's football coach beyond this season or accept the big offer from Texas A&M. Of course, Fisher guided the Seminoles to the 2013 National Championship and 3 ACC titles. He's considered to be the top replacement for someone with the Aggies.
It's absolutely fair to ask that.
Yeah.
Absolutely fair.
How much time do you need?
You got to get going because you are in – the signing date is that first week in February. You're in it now. You are in that recruiting cycle. I know there are dead times and such, but recruits that are on the fence or even some that have committed are looking at this because I guarantee you there will be ones that committed to Florida State. And if Fisher leaves, they're going to decommit. So Florida State needs to know that. If I have guys that decommit first, I want to try and get them to keep their commitment. And then if they decommit, we got to get other guys. So I get it. That's why it's always the big question after the season ends. Remember, in November, And then you have all these practices until a bowl game. If coaches are gone, it's always like, well, is he going to work the bowl game or not? My answer would always be no. I'm moving on. Whether it's an assistant that's going to move, that coach has got to another job. Let him go move on to that. And we're going to play and we're going to try and get our next coach, and we're going to move on.
Yeah.
That's the difficult part of college because of the recruiting. You need to find stability as quickly as you can. Listen, we keep bringing up Herm in Arizona State. So forgetting it being Herm, but all these schools that don't have coaches, they don't want to rush it, but they don't want to take too long because there are great jobs available, and for some of these jobs, the same coaches are being considered. So where are you in the pecking order of that? How quickly can you get it done? Because remember, those coaches then have to sign assistant coaches. Some may have jobs now, some may not, but the assistants may be valued by a couple of different head coaches. So it's a domino effect thing right now.
It's a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
I mean, you either get this or you get that. And we're talking about this early signing period. Now, we're really 20 days away from it. The early signing period for college football, where you can sign that letter of intent, which is not binding until signing day.
Right, that's right.
December,
it is new this year.
It is December 20th through the 22nd. So that's new this year. So we're literally 20 days away from swooping up and grabbing some of these players and getting them to sign the letter of intent. Again, not binding, but a lot of times it does hold over into National Signing Day in February. So it's a matter of not only getting your coach, but making sure you get your coach in place so they can go make those pitches to those players to make sure they get to the schools where you want them to go.
And already we saw 3 of the commitments for Florida State. They have already decommitted.
Right.
Again, we'll see if a new coach, and that's why Florida State wants to know. Okay, is our guy going to stay? Then you could probably get those commitments back. If he's not, who are we going to get? Are those guys going to end up going somewhere else? And that's why it's difficult when these coaches lose their jobs. The one thing you want them to do is you always say you want them to tell the team. You hate for them to text everybody and just leave. You'd love for them to get down in front of their team and say, hey, I'm going for this or for that reason. After that, as far as I'm concerned, go. Right. You got a new job, go to it. The school you're leaving, they got to get going on what they got to do, and you as the new head coach somewhere else, you got to get going and do what you do. End it the right way. Talk to your players face-to-face. Don't do it by text. Do that at least, and then be on your way.
All right, we'll see what happens there going forward with all the coaching carousel changes and recruitment in college football. NFL tonight, Washington at Dallas. Who do you like?
I think I like Dallas in this one.
Yeah.
Though I don't really know why.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's the same way. I think I like Dallas too, but I can't give you a definitive reason. They've scored less than 10 in 3 straight games.
Tiger under or over par?
I'm gonna hope it's under.
Yeah,
and it's hope. That's all it is.
We got a lot of hope,
and hopefully we'll be back on Friday. Thanks for watching. We'll have Katie Nolan and Tim Tebow tomorrow on Golic and Wingo. Thanks for watching, listening, both.